Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. My name's Everett. This time is another mechanical video. I know some of the mechanical videos are hit and miss as far as how many people actually want to watch them. That's fine. I mostly put them up for anybody who is either mildly interested or has a similar vehicle and would like to know what they're up against or know what the mechanic is doing. That's really what it's for. If they don't really have the highest number of views, that's fine. Again, this is really just me doing what I normally do with the video camera over my shoulder. This time what I have is a 2002 Infiniti I35 with a couple coolant leaks, and we wound up replacing the thermostat in it as well. Hope you find it interesting. I don't do a whole lot of mechanical work at home, honestly. Mostly just trying to help friends and family out. This is not a money-making venture by any stretch, and it's really just trying to, be a good friend and, family member. I mean, hey, if your pipe breaks in your basement and you have a plumber for a brother-in-law, would you not expect him to come help you fix the pipe? So that's kind of basically what it is around here. It's also kind of nice because I'm not actually working at a shop right now. It gives me a chance to keep my hands in it as far as keeping in practice. We have here a 2002 Infiniti I35. A good friend of mine, Tracy, it's his car. And the thing is, the radiator's leaking, so between that and the fact that age and such, we're going to put a thermostat in it, and we're going to replace the coolant as well. Should be a fairly straightforward repair. We'll see how it goes. First thing we need to do is remove this intake tube housing here. It's got these goofy little push pins. Yeah, these little guys. And that, you wiggle up and out of the way. Put those aside in a container to save them. The lower radiator is up behind this air deflecting shield here. It has some push pin type connectors on the front, fastening it to the front bumper fascia, and it's got a few 10mm head bolts. These things are often miserable to get off in one piece. As I say, don't be surprised if they come apart in pieces. There. This little unit right there looks like it takes a Phillips. Now let's see how much this splooges all over me. I guess that's not so bad. So now we can let the system drain out and go from there. Well, the coolant's draining out of the bottom. I should have enough fluid removed in order to remove the upper radiator hose, and it uses these spring style clamps. At least this one does. It has the original equipment clamps. Now you can use these pliers, which are specifically meant for this sort of thing. These guys here, they have the little jaws to grab on the spring clamps, but if you have a pair of channel lock type pliers, then they would work for this too. You can hear the flow change because I added some air venting. There, that makes a little bit more space to work. What we're going to do now is disconnect the wiring from the radiator fans. We have a couple zip ties and a couple Christmas tree style retainers. I know you can't really see it from there. I'll try to get you in for a better look here. You just push down on this little tab to release that tab there from the connector on the radiator fan. There. Comes back there, and we have another Christmas tree style connector back here. Weaselly little wire spring clamp there. All this is for is to hold the overflow tube onto the top of the radiator. And now let's take the radiator fan out. So we have these two bolts here to take off to take the radiator fan out. Before we can remove the radiator fan assembly, there is a little clip that is holding one of the transmission oil cooler tubes to the bottom of the radiator fan assembly. Rather than trying to get a video shot of it because of its position, I'll get a picture of it and put it up here so you can see where it is. Like I say, it's just a little clip, so you just have to pull it out of that clip, lift it out. There. Push it aside. Out comes the radiator fan assembly. Make sure it doesn't snag on too many wires. And out we come. There we go. Next step is removal of the transmission oil cooler lines. We're going to start by removing the clamps. I have a couple little tabs on them. I'm just going to use a small pair of pliers because they're easier to get in here. There we are. Now before we get too much further here, let's pinch them off with some hose clamp pliers. Try to minimize the amount of fluid loss. And then once this pops off, put a little cap over it. Pop that one off. Out of the way. Put a cap on that one as well, and that should minimize the mess. There. And lower rad hose clamp comes off best from the bottom. Slide him back. A little bit more into the bucket. Now everything's disconnected from the radiator. I will admit I like this design because it doesn't have the AC condenser attached to the radiator, so it makes it a little easier to work with. Last step in radiator removal is removing these two nuts up top here. What they do is they hold these rubber insulators in place, and that's what retains the radiator on the top. Fits into a couple. The rubber isolators from the bottom, yeah, you can probably see these rubber isolators on the bottom. They fit into pockets on the subframe or radiator support at the bottom. So this here is one of the pockets where one of the rubber isolators sits, and that's the other pocket right there. We'll have to transfer the rubber isolator to the new radiator. One other thing we need to do is change the thermostat while we're in here, and that is actually inside this housing here, and it's unitized to the housing, so we have to remove it all as a piece. Again, it'll be a little awkward getting in here around the camera, but such is life. That clamp comes off because this little bypass tube must be removed. Bypass hose comes off. Disconnect it from the lower radiator hose just to sort of slide it up and out of the way. Now the lower radiator hose does need to be removed as well. I have one of these cable style hose clamp pliers. The thing about them is that you wouldn't really need them if you're doing this at home. You also probably wouldn't have a camera in your way. Just slide that off for now. Sometimes it's handy to take a 90-degree awl. Try to break the rubber loose from the metal it's stuck to. There we are. Radiator hose comes off. Just get it out of the way because we have 3 bolts. That one right there, I don't know if you can see it in the... Yeah, that one there is going to be a bit of a turd, just simply because this adjuster's in the way. Although I think I should be able to use my swivel socket. I do apologize, my hand is probably going to be in the way for some of these. Especially seeing as I'm going to have to work by braille because I can't really see what I'm up against here. Okay, that goes down there. It cracked loose easily enough. I can see where this is going. And south seems to be the direction. There. So I grabbed a hold of the bolt with the magnet. There, it comes out of the bottom. I just didn't want to drop the bolt or the socket. There's that one. Excellent. 2 out of 3. And then the third one is right up in here. Theoretically, that should be the easiest one. Kind of why I saved it for last, actually. Again, if I was on flat rate and doing this and not taking video of it, I'd be using air tools, and if you go to do this at home, this will be easier for you than it is for me at the moment. There. That is our thermostat. So for some unknown reason, the manufacturer of this aftermarket kit decided to put the adhesive on the engine block side of the gasket. So it would have made more sense to me to say put it on the thermostat side. Alright, after fighting with that, I decided to put 3 little daubs of silicone on the corners of the thermostat housing. And that should allow everything to stay in place as I slide this into place. There we are. Now I just need to get the bolts started. Okay, there's one. The trick is making sure that gasket hasn't fallen out of place, which I don't believe it has. So I start working that gasket or that bolt down. Double check, make sure our gasket is not flipped up and out of the way. Yeah, I do believe it's still in place. And time to start bolt number 3, which I can see right now is going to be a bit of an issue. Because I can sort of see it from the side here with a magnet, we're going to try sliding it in and locating it with the magnet there. And then our extension. Now that all the bolts are started, now it's time we can snug them down. Start with the 2 ugly ones, and go with the easy one. Click. Click. And the third one, the easy one to get at. Click. Oh, kiddo. I gotta go deal with that. Now that that's in place, we can put our lower rad hose in place. Wiggle him on. Now to make this easy on myself, that's where the hose clamp's going to stay. Time to bring this bypass hose back into play. Reinstall it in this little clip on the lower radiator hose. Right here, it's behind this wiring harness back here. And you can push this hose onto its barb fitting. And importantly, not forget to put the clamp back on. It's really embarrassing to forget to put the clamp back on in a customer's vehicle. You have to do it this way. There. Now it won't come off. Alright, so this side here is done. Thermostat is changed and the lower radiator hose has been reinstalled. Now we can go on to installing the radiator. So after pilfering these little rubber bumpers off of the bottom of the old radiator, they go onto these little nubs on the bottom of the new radiator. And now we can set our new radiator in place, making sure those little rubber isolators fall into the little pockets on the front subframe. Just like that. So that's what we need right there. These little isolators for the top go on. It's now time to put the lower radiator hose on. Easier done from the bottom. There we go. Now it's time for our transmission oil cooler lines to go on. We have to remember to put our clamp back on place. There's one. Two clamps. I'll remove this greasy piece of paper towel before I forget it in there. Now we can reinstall our radiator fan assembly. Alright, it's now time to install the radiator fan assembly. You can see down on the bottom there the clip that the lower little tab goes into. When installing the radiator fan assembly, we just need to make sure we've engaged those little tabs. And yep, we've done that. And then these upper tabs are where the bolts go to mount it, to secure it. Now the original radiator had this gimlet style point screw with a really rough thread, self-tapping sort of thing to go into the actual radiator tank. There was a little tab there. These have these little captured nuts. They actually require an M6. I had to dig through my bolt bin and I found a couple of these. They're Torx head, but they'll work. Do one of those either side. The other one's off camera. That's fine. You get the basic idea. It's a bolt. Now they're 20 millimeters long, which with 5 millimeters thickness on this piece here, I'd have just about 15 millimeters clearance back here. These will fit just nicely. And with stuff like this, I'm kind of paranoid, so I like to hand tighten. There. They just have to be snug. It's not like they're head bolts. And then we have the electrical connectors here. Bring our harness back around. Because I had to cut these to get them off, I'm just going to use some standard zip ties and zip tie these up. I'll do that later. Yeah, I'll resecure it after. One thing to remember as well, I don't know if you can see it down there, but let's see if I can, yeah. Your one transmission oil cooler hose, remember this tab here? It pops into that tab. So there it is right there. Probably can't see it, but it's there. Now I actually can install the upper radiator hose. And we can call this job pretty much done, apart from adding coolant. These original equipment style spring clamps can actually clip to get click in the withdrawn position or the loose position, and you can pop them loose just by moving the little tab. I'm a little leery of doing that just simply because of the fact that I've been bit by them one too many times. There we go, upper radiator hose. So this morning I went and got some distilled water, mixed it with the concentrate that came from Nissan, and this is just a spare empty container I had to work with. Sadly, I don't have the right little fitting to grab onto the top of the radiator. for my coolant filling funnel. So I'll just have to be careful with this one. There we go, 1 gallon. Or 3.78 liters, whatever. I don't hear dribbling underneath the car, so that's a good sign. Whoop, there we go. One other thing I mentioned to him is to check the radiator cap. I think you can see in the light there the little groove that's been pushed into the gasket. When I see them get really deep, I like to recommend replacing the radiator cap at the same time. Now that the radiator's full, we're going to add some to the coolant bottle. I have removed and drained the coolant bottle during the repair process. One little trick I like to do is to slightly overfill the coolant overflow bottle. Then as you run it, it starts moving the air out, and then there we go. Not a huge amount, but just slightly overfilled. Then when you run it, any of the air bubbles, whatever, they get pushed out there, and then as it cools, it draws liquid back in, so that helps to purge the air from the system. Right, moment of truth. We still have it on the jack stands. I'm going to let this run for a while and let the coolant circulate, let the engine warm up and the thermostat open. So I've run it up for a bit here, and the radiator hoses are nice and hot. It's moving fluid through the system, and the air's just about gone. So now Tracy can come get his car and we can have a visit, and yeah. So I hope you found that at least interesting or useful in some way. Again, I'm only really just doing what I normally do, only over the last couple of years I've hung a video camera over my shoulder and just brought it along for the ride for anybody who's interested. For all of you who follow the channel, I just want to say thanks. You know, whether you subscribe or not, I do appreciate the people who come by and, you know, make comments and such. And yeah, so for what it's worth, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, those of you who do, and see y'all next time.